I remember when I was trying to get sober, which took a lot of tries. I was so exhausted. I was so exhausted, and actually getting sober felt like it needed a lot of energy, and I just didn't have it. So, if you're struggling with the same thing, I want to shed some light on what's actually exhausting you so that you can move through it. You can obliterate that hurdle and move through it. Stay tuned with me on this episode of the Conscious Coffee Break, where we go over what's actually exhausting you when it comes to moving into a sober lifestyle. Hey there, Jennifer Sack here for another episode of the Conscious Coffee Break, where I help you transition into a sober lifestyle. So, if you're sober curious, you're sober ready perhaps, and you're feeling a little terrified about all the stuff when it comes to moving into your sober lifestyle, hang out with me in my world because we're going over all of these. And today we're talking about how exhausting it feels to try and get sober. And it's really funny because you feel like you need a lot of energy to be sober, and you kind of do. And the way to mitigate all that exhaustion you're feeling is to hit the nail on the head with exactly what is exhausting you. And it is the mental debate. It is the negotiating with yourself over and over again. It's when you haven't quite made that full hardcore decision to quit and you're waffling and because you're scared, there's a lot of reasons we do this. We procrastinate. We know a lot of things will change. We're afraid of change. We're afraid of the things we don't know that will change. We're terrified. We're terrified. And so we procrastinate. And what this does is it creates a lot of negotiating with yourself back and forth. And I remember this. It didn't matter if I was in one of my moments of sobriety because in the moments of sobriety that I was holding, hoping it was going to stick, I would be like white knuckling my way through it. But I was constantly surrounded by either people who were still using, still participating in the actions that I was trying not to by media. Let's be honest. Drinking and even drugs sometimes is glorified all the time in our society. I mean, drinking, especially like commercials, media, it's just makes it seem like a cool thing to do, that it's helping you, like, let's do this together. This is like a community effort. It's like ridiculous how you are always surrounded by it. And especially if your crowd that you hang out with is also in that party. You're trying to be sober, but it seems like the whole world is against you. Trying to throw things in your face to remind you that you're not participating. So there's that sort of mental warfare of always being surrounded by that. And then in the times that I would slip and fall back into participating in substance abuse, there was a lot of that sort of shame and guilt that came along with it because I knew deep down in my heart I wanted to be sober. I knew I had said I was going to be sober, and now I've reneged on that. I felt like two people personally because I was out there leading and teaching in wellness and yoga and meditation, but secretly behind the doors, I was a total addict and participating in these things that were not making me well. And so I had some imposter syndrome issues going on there. Guilt for not showing up 100% fully and honest and transparent for people. Guilt not being a good mom because I thought it made me a horrible mom for secretly being a certain way. All sorts of things, this mental warfare of the back and forth between not only going between sobriety and not, but what happens when you're in each one of those states is exhausting. Let's be honest. It is a constant narrative in your head running, making you feel off, making you feel depleted, making you feel all sorts of negative energy. And it will completely deplete you. And when you're depleted, you do not have the reserves, you do not have the willpower, you do not have the grit to show up for yourself. You just default back to what's comfortable, to what your coping mechanisms are, your substances that you cope with, your security blanket. It's so much easier to just default back and ignore, postpone, all of those things so that you don't have to show up. Because when you're exhausted and you're depleted, let's face it, we typically move with a path of least resistance, so we'll throw in the towel much easier. It makes it much harder. Even thoughts of like, when will I quit? Um, Thoughts of things like, you know, Okay, so I'm trying to moderate. So you're negotiating with yourself, right? Well, I don't need to quit. I'm just gonna moderate. I'm just gonna do real good about not doing too much. And so then your mind is still in its own mental warfare because you're obsessed now with, well, how much will I drink or use? When will I do it? How can I do it? Where can I do it? Who will I be with? You start just churning and churning all of the if, ands, and buts around this moderation so that you can maintain your you know participating in the lifestyle that you do, but in a healthier way, not ever really helpful for anybody. There's a quote I love that I actually clung to many times throughout my sobriety phases, and it's easier to keep a tiger in a cage than on a leash. I love that quote because it is 100% true when it comes to sobriety. It is 10 times easier, 100 times easier to lock away that stuff and say, no, hardcore decision. I'm sober now, not even like non negotiable. It's like you can just cut yourself off anytime some thought or person tries to persuade you another way. You're like, no. But if you're trying to keep that tiger on a leash, you're getting pulled like this all of the time. You're fighting. And that is what is exhausting. So, in a previous episode, I spoke about how really the biggest hurdle is just your decision. Just your decision, like this is it, this is final. Because once you've done that, the mental warfare is over. Yes, you have a lot of other things to contend with after that point. There's still fear. There's still things that have to change. There's still the unknown because this is a different lifestyle than you're used to. But the mental warfare is over. So now you have the energy to do those things, to live that life, to take it step by step, day by day, without the clearance of that energy, without the energy itself, without setting aside the mental warfare and getting over that, you're going to be too exhausted. You're not going to be able to stick with it, most likely, because it's hard because it's so much easier to just throw in the towel. It's true too, because with your reticular activating system, if you think about it, anything you concentrate on is always going to come into your line of vision. It's going to attract you. Your attention will be attracted to all those things. So if you are focusing on getting sober, but I'm not sober, like all the things are going to shine in your life and pick up, and you're just going to constantly be obsessed with every little thing. You're going to notice every other person having a drink, even on TV, a commercial, a movie, in the restaurant that you're in. You're going to focus on every little detail of your own use. You're going to focus on all of these things that are going to keep you rallying in your head. Whereas when you make that decision and you just set aside all of that, your reticular activating system now, your focus now is on attracting all the benefits and the good things that come from your new sober lifestyle. Positive things. Yeah, there's a shitstorm of things that are hard. I'm not going to lie. But you're going to be able to focus on the positive aspects of that because you're living it and there's no longer this negotiation going on inside of you. So, the real solution here is to stop negotiating with yourself. Just cut it out. Enough is enough, right? There's going to be a moment where enough is, and that's literally what happened with me. I had gone back and forth for 3 full years, cycling in and out of sobriety. And I just had enough. I was too tired. I was like, I'm exhausted of myself. I'm exhausted of the own thoughts, the back and forth. Like, God forbid anybody I be trying to talk about my struggles with, they be tired of me going back and forth and me talking about it endlessly. I was 10 times more tired of that, of my own self, than they could be because it was in here all the time, in my head all the time. Either I was sober, obsessing about wanting to use and seeing everything in my environment that wanted me to, or I was not sober, obsessing about all of the aspects of that, trying to moderate. When would I get sober? The imposter syndrome, the shame, the guilt. There was always an obsession going on. And I just finally was like, how many times can I go around the same mountain? Like, I can't. Like, I'm done. I'm exhausted. No more. I can't do this. And that was the enough is enough like moment for me and that decision that was made. And once that happened, the rest just like followed suit. You just moved through instead of fighting against. And you have energy when you're moving through with a purpose versus total exhaustion and depletion when you are fighting against something. So the solution is to stop negotiating with yourself, to allow yourself to get fed up, to allow yourself to choose yourself. It really is. Because be honest with yourself. How much energy are you wasting on the negotiation, the back and forth? Okay. And no shame, my friends. Because like I said, I did it for years. And you may not be able to top that, like you might say. It's been longer. I've tried it so many times. Forget all of that. You always have the choice to choose a different way forward. All right. So I hope that's helpful for you. And I hope it just kind of sheds some light on something. Like sometimes when we can see something for what it is, like it almost becomes laughable. Like, what am I doing to myself here? Duh. Like, I'm creating this problem. I'm creating all of this drama and mental exhaustion over this. And I can just stop. I can just stop with one decision. Okay. So chew on that. I'll see you around next time. Thanks for hanging out with me, friends.